Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to our first home learning program from Torrey Pines State Park Reserve. And I wanted to just check quickly if you all can hear me, maybe give me a hand raise. And if you can see me, let's see. So, we've got a lot of participants already. So excited for you to join us. Oh, there we go. Yeah, a lot of hands. All right, so I think we're good. You can see me and you can hear me. Again, we're at California State Park's Torrey Pines in San Diego. And we have a slide that we're going to share in just a minute about showing you that location a little bit more in detail. But Miss Lucy is here with me. She is helping to moderate. And this is a collaboration between 3 different agencies. We have Lucy and myself from San Alejo State Beach. And then we have Louis Sands from Torrey Pines, an interpreter. All 3 of us share educational programs. And then we also have 2 rangers from Anza Borrego State Parks. And we're so lucky to have them, Ranger Brittany and Ranger Adam. And they're going to be talking about big, rare trees. We've got one that's right here, and then we have one that's a little further north. And you know what? I don't have a San Diego slide for you. The one that we will show you, though, is the one up in Calaveras Big Trees State Park, the only state park to have the Giant Sequoia. And that's what Ranger Brittany is going to talk about. And then we have our Torrey Pines that Ranger Adam will tell us about why they are rare, why they are important, and why we would want to protect them. So I'm very excited about this collaboration and about being here with you at Hortz. First thing I would like to do is bring up our first speaker. The first speaker is Ranger Brittany, and I'm going to, you will all can actually do question and answer. This is unusual for a home learning program. Now, everyone else cannot see your question and answers, but our moderator, Miss Lucy, can. So she can be answering questions, and then some of them she might ask directly to Ranger Brittany. So that's how you're going to be able to communicate. You can do it through hand raises, and you can also do it through the chat. But remember, this is an unusual circumstance. We don't usually do that for home learning program. I just wanted to share one more thing. We're all still concerned about our safety, right? And so we did wash our hands prior to the program. We sanitize all of our equipment. We are all wearing masks unless we are in front of the camera. We are socially distant from each other. If we cough or sneeze, we're going to do that into our sleeve. So we are definitely staying safe. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Ranger Brittany.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sandy, for that introduction. As she had mentioned before, I'm Ranger Shear with California State Parks, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about the Giant Sequoia and how it's the most powerful tree in the forest. Share the slide. Okay, so here we go. The giant.
So I'm so sorry. That's okay. I don't know if you shared. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So, all right, guys. So we're gonna talk about giant sequoias. How it's the most powerful tree in the forest. No, we're not gonna talk about Groot today. I know he's got all his cool superpowers and everything like that, but we're gonna let him go do his thing and take care of the universe. All right. So I know we're not actually physically here. We can't see the giant sequoia currently, but I'll try to help give you guys a visual of what the tree looks like. If you can imagine just how big the tree is. So the width of the tree, it's about like 2 car lengths wide. So if you take 2 cars line them up from front to back. That's about how wide the trees are. The tree weighs about as much as 107 elephants. So that's a pretty heavy tree. So also they get really old too. They can be a couple thousand years old as well. So that's just a little bit about the tree. I'm going to kind of talk more too about it and later on in the presentation. I'll go over the parts of the tree, what the superpowers are of the tree, sidekicks to the tree, the villains, or what weakens the tree, and then how you guys can help. Okay, so this slide here shows 2 cones. So if you guys can guess, 1 second, there's a plane going overhead. A couple planes going overhead, so we'll just pause for a second so you guys can hear me. Okay, so if you guys have guessed it yet or not, which pine cone belongs to the giant sequoia, the one on the left or the one on the right? You can guess which one. If you guess the one on the right, then you are right. It's the smaller one. I know you might think it's the one on the left because it's bigger, the giant sequoia is bigger, but it's actually the one on the right. It's about the size of an egg, and inside that cone are these little seeds, and they're about the size of like an oatmeal flake. So it's pretty cool to think about how a tree that large can start from a seed that small. Okay, so now we're going to get into the parts and like the superpowers of the tree. So the tree, will start with the roots. So they have like root strength. So those roots grow hundreds of feet wide underneath. So those roots help to hold the tree up tall and strong and brave it, keep it strong against harsh winds or other environmental factors that might come along its way. The leaves, they actually don't really give off oxygen like some other trees do. They actually absorb harmful chemicals in the air like carbon. So those leaves will absorb that carbon from the air, making the air cleaner for us and other animals to breathe. And then from there, that carbon goes down into the bark, and the bark's pretty cool. The bark will actually store that carbon, and it actually acts as like a shield to the giant sequoia. So it's actually a couple feet thick. The bark can be about 3 feet thick all the way around, and the bark is actually fire resistant, so it actually doesn't catch on fire. And fire is not really a bad thing for the tree also. The fire kind of acts like a sidekick too. It'll burn all the dead vegetation, dead plants that are around the tree to help make space for the sequoia drop its seeds to plant other baby trees so that they can have room to grow up into big adult trees also. And this is the mighty Douglas squirrel. He's like a sidekick also to the tree. So he will go get the cones, he'll start eating the cones, and then he'll leave some seeds behind. So he'll actually help plant trees. And so he does a big part in helping the trees as well. So just like how the tree is a home to the Douglas squirrel, it's also home to hundreds of other species, anywhere from as small as ants to as big as a black bear. So the ants, they call the tree their home. The bat will live in caves in the tree. Sometimes the tree will split, creating like a cave, and the bats will call that their home. The fish, the salmon there, they rely on clean water for them to live in. So the giant sequoia will filter the water out, and it will allow the water to stay clean for them to live in. And then the black bear, he just likes to hang out in the trees. He likes the smell of the trees also. So if you've ever smelt the giant sequoias, then you would know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so we got the weaknesses of that harm that harm the giant sequoia. And that's pollution that's in the air that comes from all over. That pollution will weaken the giant sequoia, making it harder for them to survive. And there used to be more trees all around the world, and now they're only found here in California. So as strong and mighty as they are, they do need our help as well to keep surviving. And you might be asking yourself the question of like, how can I help? What can I do? And I asked myself the same question, and that's the big reason why I decided to be a ranger, so I could help the trees, plants, animals, things that can't really speak for themselves. So one way you guys can help is you can join a league, just like how there's a Justice League with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. There's a Save the Redwoods League, so you guys can go check out that website or that organization. You can donate, you can tell a friend one thing you learned today about the giant sequoia, or you can go to a park and visit the park. As Sandy had mentioned before, Calaveras Big Tree State Park is within the California state parks, so you can go there, check them out, and just see, just how awesome these trees really are. And that pretty much wraps up my presentation. We're going to open it up to some questions now.
Lucy, do you have any questions for?
Wow, Brittany, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing the strong and mighty sequoias. We do have a question from Sienna, who is wondering, is the giant sequoia really giant?
It is very giant. You probably wouldn't believe it if you saw it. Almost, big almost. They are super giant trees. I mean, I wish I could show you guys just how big they are, but you really gotta go check them out and see them for yourself to see just how giant they are.
Awesome. And then we also have a question from Rahana asking if there are a lot of bats around the sequoia areas.
That's a really good question. I don't know off the top of my head just how many bats there are in the area. But I don't want to give you any false information, but I can definitely research that for you, and I can learn as well just how many bats are in the area, and then we can get that information out to you.
All right, Brittany, we have one last question for you. Tara Riddle is wondering, how many years does it take for a sequoia to grow?
It takes a lot of years for them to grow. They're slow growers, but they can grow to be up to a couple thousand years old. Once they get that old, that's when they're really, really big. So it takes, a couple hundred to a couple thousand years old for them to get that big. So yeah, it's a long time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brittany. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing all the superpowers of the sequoia and everything we can do to protect them.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Well, I would love to hear a virtual round of applause for our first speaker today. And you can do that with your hand raised and show me how much you enjoyed that presentation. I love that. Oh, everybody here, our gallery, they've got their hands up. They're giving us some props, Ranger Brittany. We all know it's not easy to get on the camera and just talk, just like you're our best friends, and you are, but it isn't easy. So we thank the Rangers, both of them, Brittany and Adam, for being with us today. So we talked about the giant sequoia, and we're going to talk about another giant rare tree. Our giant sequoias are only in the state park called Calaveras Big Trees, and that's the only state park in California, and there's a few other national parks, but other than that, they used to be in all of northern hemisphere. and they are no longer that way. So they are in danger. And Ranger Brittany told us, that they are very valuable and we do want to protect them, right? So I have a question for you before I bring up Ranger Adam. What can you think of, any similarities? Let me say it again. What similarities can you think of between our big, rare trees and our state park rangers? Can you think of any adjectives, anything that would describe both of the rangers and those big, rare trees? So Miss Lucy, let me know if anybody's bringing in any answers right now. Oh, I've got lots of folks raising their hand. Guys, remember, for this program, it's a special program, so you can put your answers in the Q&A. One thing I can think of is resilient, and Ranger Adam's going to tell us too. Even though these trees are so big, they're not so rigid that they would just snap off in the wind. They have adapted so that they actually can bend. And I think that's how our rangers are. They have to be resilient and be able to bounce back. And that's one thing I would say that applies to both of them. Miss Lucy, any other comments right now? No, okay. A couple more that I could think of. Strong, and we were talking about the super rangers, the people that are protecting us, and definitely. So I'd say they're strong. They're also here to protect us. And just like our big rare trees protect the earth, they help to protect the earth by taking carbon out, getting rid of carbon, which is something that is really making our earth heat up with climate change. But just like the rangers, they're here to help protect us. Well, now I'm going to bring up our final speaker for today, Ranger Adam, and he's going to talk about this beautiful tree that we're standing under right now.
Well, hello guys. My name is Ranger Adam. I am here to talk to you today about the amazing and the wonderful Torrey Pine tree. Now you see, the Torrey Pine tree is very rare, and some consider it the rarest tree in all the United States. Now, the Torrey Pine is critically endangered, and it can only be found in 2 locations. That being right here where I'm standing at the Torrey Pine State Reserve, and also off the Santa Rosa Islands, which is part of the Channel Islands, a little bit up north, kind of off of Santa Barbara. Now, when you go up north and you go to the coastal side of the beach up north, there's a lot of pine trees up there. It's actually very common. But down here in Southern California, there is not a lot of pine trees on the coastline. For the most part, you just get sand and honestly just more sand. That's pretty much all you have. So it's very rare to see pine trees along the coast. And Spanish settlers noticed that as well back in 1500. When they would travel across the ocean up and down California, they actually noticed this very unique pocket of trees here at Torrey Pine State Reserve, exactly where we are now. And they use this almost as a traveling point, kind of as a way to tell exactly where they were, if they were lost or if they had no idea where they were located. They would also use the Torrey Pine tree as a way to see how close they were to the coastline. As you can imagine, it can be very dangerous bringing your ship really close to the beaches, so you got to be very careful, and the trees help them while traveling to see exactly where they were because they would stick out of the fog line. Also, Native American tribes, and specifically the Kumeyaay people, they would use the tree for many different purposes. One of those purposes being the pine needles were very long and durable. They're actually very flexible. So what they could use with the pine needles on the Torrey Pine is they could use it for maybe weaving a basket or tying tools together. It had multiple different purposes. And you can see right here, I have a little bit of a Torrey Pine pine needle with me right now. And those are very long needles and they're very bendable. As you can see, they bend very easily. So you can use this to tie a lot of stuff with. Also, the Torrey Pine, just like many pine trees, produces a pine cone. And in the Torrey Pine cone, there is a pinion nut. So the pinion nut that the Torrey Pine cone produces is actually very hard. It is edible raw. I mean, you could eat it. It's just very difficult, probably not the best for your teeth. I wouldn't recommend it. So a lot of the times what the Native Americans did, the Kumeyaay tribe, is they would use that pinyon nut kind of as an ingredient. They would crush it up, smash it into a powder, and use it for when they would cook meals. It would kind of be like an additive to certain meals that they would eat. Now that we talked a little bit about the history, I kind of want to talk about what I would say are my favorite features of the Torrey Pine, what I think make it super unique. One of those would have to be the extensive root system of the Torrey Pine, kind of like how Ranger Brittany talked about the giant sequoias, and the roots spread very wide and they go out wide. The Torrey Pine does that as well, but it also goes deep. It's a mixture of both. And the reason for that is because the root of the Torrey Pine is constantly looking for water. As you can imagine, being on the coastline, there's not a lot of great water resource here. It's a lot of sand sediment. So, I mean, it's not the best soil for pretty much any plant to grow in. So the root is constantly looking for any amount of water resource. And it's just constantly fighting and constantly giving it its all to survive and to stay here where we can enjoy it. And I know what you might be thinking. I mean, there's not a lot of water, it's sand sediment. How did this tree make it? There's no way that that's even possible, Ranger Adam. And I'm going to tell you that the tree, just like the Kumeyaay tribe, it uses its own needles kind of as its own tool. And so what I'm going to show you today is kind of an example to explain something called the marine layer. Now, what the tree does is it uses those beautiful long needles and it collects water, pretty much water particles. Imagine all the marine layer and the fog coming from the coast, and it's carrying a lot of water droplets in there. What the pine needles will do is it'll collect all those water droplets and it will start to create its own rain system. And it will start to drop all the water down to the base of the tree. And I can actually show you an example right now. So let's say that this is at the very top of the tree and you got a fog coming in. So I'm going to mist these needles up. So if you have all the fog coming in, the needles are collecting all the water, it starts to create its own rain system. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's starting to drip. So it's making its own rain. And being here in California, I mean, we have climate change that goes on. So the marine layer really isn't as common as it used to be. And being in a drought. So it's very difficult for the tree, and it has to do whatever it can to make sure that it gets its resource. Next, I want to talk about one of my favorite things that I love about the tree, which is salt pruning, or you could call it salt hardening in a way. Right here, you don't really see, I mean, you can see some trees behind me. I'm blocking some of them. You can see some trees behind me. They're kind of growing straight up very normally. But the closer you get to the coastline is when you get these really cool, honestly, like really fun looking trees. And you almost say, is that a Torrey Pine? But believe it or not, it is. What happens is the trees that are very close to the coastline, whenever there's a heavy wind, they start to blow. And the core of the Torrey Pine, the bark is actually very flexible. It's very soft compared to a lot of other trees. So it allows it to be very flexible and bend. So if there's a heavy wind, let's say I'm a Torrey Pine, and you guys could join me too, and I'm up here just like a pine tree and a heavy wind's coming from my right side, and now I'm blowing, and I'm just blowing and I'm getting blown away. And now all the salt water off of the ocean water, all the salt off the ocean is getting picked up and grazing over the tree, and as the wind picks up, the salt starts to harden. So now the tree will get stuck, and it gets stuck just like this. And what does the tree do? Does it just give up and say, you know, my bark kind of hurts, I really don't think I want to grow anymore? It says no. It says, you know what, I'm just going to grow that way. Let's just grow that way. And it starts growing this way. And let's say wind comes from the other side, maybe it'll start growing that way. So you get all these cool, fun looking trees, all these awesome shapes. And it's really what makes the tree so unique. And on top of that, I'm going to have to talk about a little pest around here, something that is very troublesome. I don't know if you guys could see, it's kind of hard. If I can move this maybe up a little bit, but down here, there's some dead Torrey pine trees, which is very sad. We do not like seeing that here. And the reason for that is because of this little pest called bark beetles. Now, bark beetles, what they do is they burrow themselves into the base of the tree, and they attack the tree from its protective bark and laying its own larva and causing it and starting to pretty much eat the tree from the inside, blocking its own transport for nourishment. So the tree, whenever it collects nourishment, that bark beetle is pretty much eating that transport of that nourishment from the roots of the tree, and now the tree can't feed itself, so the tree will slowly die. The tree does have its own defense systems. It does create sap, which, I mean, we could come to this tree at the end and you'll see a little bit of sap, and it's very sticky. It's just like glue, and it tries to push out the bark beetles. But sometimes that's not just enough. So what we do here is we create these bark beetle traps. And if you ever come to Torrey Pines, you could kind of see them floating around everywhere. It's like these black hanging traps, and what they are supposed to do is attract the bark beetles using a thing called pheromones. And pheromones are really just a specific scent that the beetles like. I like to explain it like if I were in a room and someone wanted to attract me to a corner of the room, they would have a fresh slice of pizza waiting for me, and I would smell that pizza and be like, that pizza, where is that pizza? I need to find it. So that's kind of what we got going on in these bark traps. It's like the bark beetles pizza. So we set those up so that way those bark beetles wake up every morning and they say, man, I can't wait to go munch on some Torrey Pines today. And all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, is that a bark beetle pizza I smell? You know what? Maybe we should lay off the Torrey Pine today. Let's go find that beautiful scent, and we'll go eat on that. And so this allows us to collect those bark beetles and kind of get a count for how many are in certain areas of the park, how many are just in the park in general. So it helps us understand exactly how much of a problem they are and what we need to do to prevent them from damaging these trees. I mean, these trees at one point were down to, I think, 100 Torrey Pines, and now we have over thousands of them. So it's pretty amazing how far we have come. And it's a beautiful tree, and I'm so excited that we are able to continue this tree to be around and to keep it healthy, and we're just doing our part. And now I could kind of bring you guys over. I would just want to show you maybe the bark of the tree so you could see just how cool the Torrey Pine is. Now, I don't know if you guys could see right here, but over here, this yellow sticky stuff, that's the tree sap. So like I was mentioning, when the tree is trying to attack, when the bark beetles are attacking the tree will create its own sap as a defense mechanism to try to push those beetles out. And it's very sticky, as you can tell. Look at my note card, it's sticking right to my finger. It's kind of like glue. So it's super, super sticky and pretty impressive. I mean, if you guys look over, if I could just get this up a little bit. I mean, this is a pretty big tree. It's pretty tall up there. You can see all the pine needles at the very top, those needles that are creating that rain system, and just seeing how amazing that tree is. It's so beautiful, and we are so excited to talk about it and protect it. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. I'm very happy to share that with you guys, and I would just want to open it up to some questions.
Wow, Adam, way to talk about those Torrey Pines and to show us an up-close view and the sticky sap. That was really incredible to see all that texture on the bark. So we do have a few questions here for you. Sienna is wondering, are there any birds here at this park?
There are birds here at this park. Yeah, we see ravens all the time. There's snowy plovers, I believe, down on the beaches of Torrey Pines as well, which are a protected bird. So there are definitely birds here in Torrey Pines, and there are birds that occasionally will nest up into the tree.
Awesome. And then Sienna also wants to know, can you repeat how far and wide the roots spread, roughly?
So the roots can spread very, very far. So let's say, for instance, this tree right next to me that I showed you guys, this is probably about, I would say, 50 feet tall. The root system could become 3 times longer than the tree itself. So if this tree is 50 feet tall, the root system is probably around 120 to 150 feet long, going in all different various angles.